Hello and welcome to Brian Holden Studio. My name is Brian Holden, and today I will be discussing how to create a minimal, contemporary painted metal sculpture from concept to installation. Over the years I have been asked about what the procedure is like to create a commissioned work of art, and this video will hopefully guide you through the process. This series is going to be several episodes long, and even though you may not have an interest in creating your own sculpture, you may find it educational knowing what all goes into creating a public work of art. When I started my career as an artist, I exclusively worked with stainless steel and carbon steel, creating one-of-a-kind sculptures and functional pieces of art. My work has continued to evolve and refine, and I now work across a vast range of media. You can learn more about my work by visiting my website at brianholden.com or following me on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and you can also see some of our exclusive videos on my Patreon page. I truly enjoy helping others, and I hope this video series will motivate and inspire you to create something with your own two hands. And no matter what the outcome, be proud of your accomplishments and learn from your successes and failures. Long ago, I heard that success is the progressive realization of a worthy and ethical goal. So each day, I may take a few small steps or one big one, but I am always moving towards my dreams. The first step with many of my projects is to write a request for proposal or request for qualifications. A request for qualifications is required when an organization is looking to acquire a list of qualified applicants to create a work of art for them. If you are fortunate to have been selected by the organization, you will then be asked to submit a proposal outlining your concept, a drawing or model to illustrate your concept, a description about how it will be created, what materials it will be made with, an all-inclusive budget, and a timeline. The Jeffersonville Public Art Commission commissioned the project that I am reviewing in this video for their neighborhood sculpture trail project. The sculpture is entitled Converge. It is an abstract, minimal, and elegant shape that represents the fluid bend in the Ohio River at Jeffersonville, Indiana, and the flow of water within the Ohio River. The four sections that converge and make up the sculpture represents the cities of Jeffersonville, Clarksville, New Albany, and Louisville. When combined, they form a water droplet that illustrates the importance of fresh water that our community relies on to sustain a quality life, and the shape also symbolizes the four communities as a whole. When viewed from the side, the reduction in size of each section illustrates the different water levels found at the Falls of the Ohio and the McAlpin Locks and Dam. The four shades of green represent change and growth. The sculpture will be created with carbon steel and will be finished with a protective primer, paint, and matte clear coat. Once I have a signed contract in hand, I will then start my planning of the production. It is said that 1 hour of planning can save 10 hours in execution, and I am a firm believer in that concept. After being comfortable with my plan of action, I will then take my scale drawing and transfer it to full-scale templates. This can be done in two ways. one by freehand drawing it onto a piece of poster board, or two by projecting it onto the poster board. I chose to project it onto the poster board with an artograph projector. Once I have drawn it on the poster board, I will then make notations on each section of the design for a later reference of alignment, before cutting the individual pieces out with a razor knife. The templates will then be placed on the metal, nesting them together as close as possible in order to minimize material waste. If a template has a straight edge on it, I will place it on the straight edge of the sheet metal to save time with not having to cut that edge. On this particular design, the front and back sides will be the same size, so I will use one template to cut both sides. The type of metal that I will be using is 14 gauge Code Road carbon steel, also known as pickled and oiled. Code Road metal works best on metal projects that I will be painting. The 14 gauge is approximately 1/16 of an inch thick. There are many different types of carbon steel, but the two that I will use most often are Code Road and Hot Road. Hot Road looks like what you see here on my studio wall and has a black and gray mill finish on it, which can be very nice looking when left as is and clear coated. After drawing around each of the templates with a Sharpie, I will then remove the poster board templates and prepare for cutting out each metal piece. Personal and workplace safety is very important to me and should be to you as well. When cutting, I always use leather gloves and a jacket, eye protection, a respirator, and work in a well-ventilated area with a fire extinguisher nearby. I will cut the metal with a handheld plasma cutter, which is a modern version of an old oxygen and acetylene torch. The plasma cutter works off of compressed air and electricity and creates a small, precise flame. The unit that I will be using is a Spectrum 250D model made by Miller that has given me great service for over 25 years. When cutting, I find it best to start my cut on an edge when possible and pull my hands towards my body so that I can achieve the most fluid cut possible. After getting all of my side pieces of metal cut, I will then take one piece at a time and clamp it to my work surface. Working from one corner to the other, I grind all of the edges to make them smooth and fluid as possible, then flip them over to do the same on the other side. To accomplish this procedure, I will use a 36 grit 5-inch diameter grinding disc on a 4.5 inch angle grinder, which is made by Makita. You should be able to buy the disc and grinder at your local big box store or material supplier. Show care and please wear face and body protection when using any tool, especially when grinding. Now that I have all of my edges smooth and fluid, I will then clamp the front and rear panels of the lower section together to the 12-inch width of my design. Each of the 4 sections of the sculpture will be a different width, but the procedure will be the same for each. The next step is to cut support strips that will be welded in place between the front and back panels. These will help support the side panels as I put the outer panels in place. I use a Miller 185 MIG welder to weld the support strips in place. A MIG welder is also known as a wire feed welder. It works off of electricity and shielding gas. When you pull the trigger, a small diameter wire is fed from the torch, and when it comes in contact with the grounded metal, it will create a circuit and thus you can weld. I would highly recommend you watch some videos about how to MIG weld 14 gauge metal. All of the 4 sections are now welded together with the aid of the support strips. Now my next step will be to cut the metal for the outer panels. On most of my sculptures, the front and back panels are not parallel to each other, but on this design they are, which makes this step much easier. Usually I will take poster board and lay it flat on the surface that I need to cover in metal and make an oversized template, but with the front and back panels being parallel, I will only need to take some measurements and cut my metal from them. When cutting the metal pieces for a curved area, make sure that you make them much longer than they need to be so that you have some leverage to roll them into shape. I will end with a quote by Carl Jung. Art is a kind of innate drive that seizes a human being and makes him its instrument. To perform this difficult office, it is sometimes necessary for him to sacrifice happiness and everything that makes life worth living for the ordinary human being. Thanks for watching this episode of Brian Houghton Studio. I hope you have enjoyed. Please subscribe so that you get a notification when we release our next episode. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below and I will do my best to answer them for you. And don't forget to make something of yourself. God bless.